Yeah, a couple of things. I've been to Australia more than any other country, and I love it, always loved it. I used to live in San Francisco, it was easier to get there. But Australia has similar, well, first of all, Australia was one of the countries like the United States and Canada and New Zealand that were offshoots of European and particularly British culture. So we were the innovators after them. And so the innovators always rise more and innovate new things. And so Australia is a lot like the United States, a parallel sort of thing. Australia has a much smaller population like Canada, even smaller, but they have vast resources. And they're innovative, creative people, more like the United States. And they have the best immigration policy in the world. You look at best case studies for businesses. I look at countries and say, hey, if we want to look at a healthcare plan, what's the best? Look around the world and see who does the best. Australia has the best immigration policy. They're in the middle of nowhere with an ocean around them, so you can't just run over the border, number one. It's not easy to get in there. Australia they encourage immigration, but they're selective. You have to have certain skills, things we need. So their immigration has held up stronger than ours. It has actually been one of the few countries that has stronger immigration relative to the population of the U.S. So that's good for your demographics. So even though their baby boom natively trends down in the coming decade, like all developed countries, there's no developed country that doesn't hardly, their immigration keeps them stronger. That's number one. Number two, they have strong exports of materials and commodities and energy and stuff to countries like China that are still booming, in India. But we think that's going to finally hit them later. So if you look at Australia, Canada, New Zealand, you'll see they didn't have the same liberal lending policies we did, but believe me, and we just had this in our recent newsletter, they have a real estate boom that not only has stayed high, it got more extreme than the United States. Because almost all the people in Australia live in 5 coastal cities that are like California. It's desert, mountains, ocean, and this place. So there's no place to expand, so limited supply skyrockets. So there's an even bigger bubble there, and Australia, we're predicting, is going to have difficulties in the next decade. Natural demographic slowing. China's bubble is going to burst. If you want to see a bubble, look at China. I mean, what they're doing over there is more insane than what we're doing here, and that's saying something. And we went into this in a newsletter in April. It's almost too hard to explain. China has cities like 1 million people, built for 1 million people with nobody in them. They're just building stuff for no reason to keep the economy going, because the government controls there, which is not a good thing. So Australia has held up longer. They will probably never see as big a downturn as we see, but their real estate is going to bust, and that is going to affect their economy. And when real estate busts, it's a big correlation with unemployment and consumer spending.